Ideas would be something, perhaps a citizens' assembly on electoral reform, something essentially having a third party that is completely separate from the government, not like an appointed lapdog. You know, we have a lot of watchdogs in our system.
Donovan Ekstrom is one of the organizers behind the Longest Ballot initiative and is one of the more than 100 names on the ballot for the federal by-election in Alberta in the riding of Battle River-Crowfoot, where federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is vying for a seat in the House of Commons. The Longest Ballot doing the same stunt in the April federal election in Poilievre's riding to call attention to electoral reform in Canada. But Ekstrom telling me the group is nonpartisan, choosing to focus on this by-election in the considered safe Conservative riding because of the national attention.
Our goal was to actually run with in the Liberal leaders riding. We had assumed Freeland was going to win, and then Carney won, and there was not a lot of time and effort or time to switch everything over.
Oh, yeah.
Gang, it's hard not to be cynical. We have this Longest Ballot Committee, which I know is funded by the same people, our legacy media, and all the people that promote Liberal causes, agendas, saying that things are okay in Canada, only talking about the points that the Liberals want to be discussing. Nothing about our housing crisis, inflation crisis, the crisis just in the federal government itself. Look at the batch of ministers that Mark Carney threw in there. That's egg in your face. Anyhow, the CBC legacy media has this pretty boy kid, this snowflake loser who believes that when he was 18 and he was watching the elections, that he knew how to fix our system. He's trying to rig it. That's what's going on. We've got Donovan, the loser here, and then we're going to see this other kid that CBC is fostering, promoting, getting a big kick out of it on your tax dollars to ruin your democracy. It's driving me crazy. Let's take a look. These clowns are losers, and they think there's going to be no consequence. There will be a consequence.
Oh, yeah.
They're saying, like, well, why can't Elections Canada fix this? And the Longest Ballot people, we agree. Why can't a third party that's independent from the government fix, anything or change election laws? But the problem is that it's the winners that dictate how the election laws are done. The members of parliament, they're the ones that have to decide it. And then in turn, is it going to happen? Probably not until it starts to affect them a little bit. And so it's putting that little pressure on.
That's enough of Donovan Ekstrom there. It's hard to find footage of that guy. Like, they hide in the shadows because they're trying to ruin democracy, which is being promoted by the CBC. We're going to watch Rosemary Barton play footsies with this child snowflake loser that when he was 18 thought he had the insight in how to improve Canadian democracy by only sabotaging it, being force-fed by his family, by these other creeps like Donovan, to take the forefront because he's a pretty face. Who could object to this? You're a creep, kid.
Oh, yeah.
Voters in Montreal and Winnipeg heading to the polls tomorrow, but Montreal's by-election has already broken the record for longest ballot. That's because of protesters who are running in the race to call for electoral reform. Mark Mutter is one of those candidates, and he joins me now. Mark, hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
What made you decide to get involved in the longest ballot protest movement?
Well, ever since I was a teenager watching the elections happen on election night and seeing all the numbers tally up, I've been really seeing a discrepancy between the number of votes and the amount of seats that are attributed in the parliament. And I think that's something we have to fight for because our current electoral system is a massive conflict of interest, where the parties in power control the way our votes are tallied up.
So what system are you in favor of, Mark?
So we want to add an element of proportionality to our democracy in which seats are distributed by amount of votes and not by first past the post, in which the party that gains the most votes wins.
Okay, so in order to do that, part of this movement is putting lots of names on the ballot, which is the case for Lassalle-Verdun tomorrow, and your name is one of them, is that right?
That is correct.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, it's actually been really amazing talking to people about electoral reform because it's an issue that doesn't come up too often. It's not intuitive for people to think about the way votes are tallied up in elections. And I believe that the longest ballot committee is a great way to actually gain the attention for the cause, because otherwise nothing would happen. This is the first time in many years that we're seeing this become sort of a mainstream issue, and I think that's beautiful.
What about your friends, your family, your neighbors who, because you're in the riding, you're going to vote for yourself, so you'll have one vote, and you're running in the riding. What are they all saying about your decision?
It's honestly been incredibly supportive from everybody. Those around me think it's a great initiative, and the fact that this is happening within the current law, that this is a legal protest happening, is gaining a lot of people to sympathize with it.
What about the fact that, you're right, it is legal, but it is potentially annoying for the candidates who are real candidates and have a potential to win, could delay the outcome of the vote, as we saw in the last by-election in Toronto-St. Paul's? What do you say about those who say this isn't the right way to protest, this isn't the right way to push back on the electoral system?
Well, we recognize that this might lead to some delays in counting the ballots, and this might lead to some people thinking that voting is a drag on them. But the fact that this is actually being discussed for the first time ever, the fact that we have media attention for the cause, is proving that what we're doing is actually being successful. And it's proving that for the first time in a really long time, there's an actual potential for representative democracy to become a reality in Canada.
What will make you, what is the right outcome for you tomorrow night? Is it for you to have more than just your own vote, more than one vote? Is it something, the delay in the count? What to you will mark success in this protest movement?
Well, we're hoping to get a response from the government. We're hoping that the government doesn't just make it more difficult for this sort of thing to happen in the future. So we want to have a independent body in charge of elections, in charge of how the elections are actually tallied up, because right now Elections Canada doesn't decide in the way in which votes are actually tallied. Elections Canada is only responsible for carrying out the elections.
That's right.
So we're hoping to get MPs we're hoping to make MPs not decide the way elections happen anymore.
You are 18, am I right?
Yep.
So this is also your first time voting?
Yep, it's going to be my first time voting, and I'm a candidate in those elections.
That's pretty exciting. That's pretty cool, you must admit.
It's one of the most beautiful experiences of my life, honestly. Just seeing people around me being supportive and talking about the flaws in our democracy has been a great experience.
Okay, well, when I'm sitting here past midnight tomorrow, because of the long ballot, I'll think about how fun it was, at least for you, and that you got to cast your ballot for the first time, Mark.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks. Nice to meet you. Good luck tomorrow. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So if it's not disgusting enough to watch a 60-year-old woman hit on and flirt with some 18-year-old irrational punk stupid-ass snowflake, here, we've got some more legacy media for you. David Cochrane also is interested in hanging with this kid, but he's going to bring him into the studio. Spend your tax dollars on forcing some distracting message down your throat. David Cochrane is a total creep, in my opinion, and this kid is a disaster. His parents should do a better job at protecting him. Like, you would think that they would want their kid to be okay. Sending him out there to send this kind of message is not good for anyone's longevity.
Oh, yeah.
He joins me now in the studio. Mark Miller, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming in today.
It's a pleasure.
This is not your first time on a ballot, or even the longest ballot. You were one of the candidates in LaSalle-Mard-Verdun. Tell me why you want to do this the first time and why you're up for it a second time. What are you trying to do here?
When I turned 18, it was my first time voting, and at the same time, it was the by-election season in LaSalle-Mard-Verdun last year. Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, I've been following elections on election night, seeing what's going on. And I've personally been noticing how there's an unfair amount of votes being attributed to each candidate. I mean, you oftentimes have minority governments which gain a lot but gain a lot less seats in parliament afterwards than they actually deserve. You're seeing a lot of vote splitting. You're seeing a lot of candidates that deserve to be represented, but even though they actually have votes, they have zero representation in parliament, and I think that should be changed.
So you want proportional representation or ranked ballot? What is your preferred system here?
The longest ballot is a citizens' initiative. There's a lot of different people viewing this in different ways. A lot of people believe in representative democracy. A lot of others believe in ranked choice voting. I personally prefer ranked choice voting, as I believe that's the fairest way of doing it, but either way, we're all united against first past the post.
Okay, so you had just turned 18 when you ran. So you're 18 years old, and
19.
You're 19, and this is your second time running
Correct.
in a federal election. Okay, here's what I need to ask you about, though. The ballot, all right? You call it the longest ballot. We do arts and crafts here at Power and Politics. This is a replica of what people in the riding of Carleton are going to get, right, when they go in on election day. And you can see the challenges that that is going to create for filling out. And this has been a nightmare for the staff who have to count this stuff. And they're going extra late. This is a pretty big riding with Pierre Poilievre running there. You worried about backlash from this? I mean, the results for the leader of the Conservative Party may not be known to 2, 3 in the morning. And I think people might be frustrated with this.
It's not the first time we're getting this concern raised with us. Last time we were writing in Verdun, we had the same questions asked. Mm-hmm. We had the same people complaining and wondering if this is going to prevent proper elections from happening. And from what I've seen firsthand, being there until 2 a.m., close to 2 a.m. last year, in the polling station, seeing it get counted, it was not as big of an issue as people believe it to be. As a matter of fact,
2 a.m. is really late to get results in a riding, right?
That's
Like
correct.
It normally happens at a pretty crisp way that you're able to get a critical mass to make a projection. That is late. You may not think it's difficult, but for those people who've worked long days, it is, right?
Certainly, but it did start a conversation for a lot of them. You have people who are voting there for the whole day. They're seeing a long ballot, and they don't know what's going on. And actually talking to them about it, talking to them about why this is happening and why I believe this should be changed, and how there's a whole group of citizens who are coming together to actually get this conversation started on a national level is amazing. And a lot of people actually supported the group when this was talked about.
Right, but do you think it's built a national conversation for electoral reform? I mean, there are you look at cost of living, you look at Donald Trump, you look at inflation, you look at sovereignty and security and all of these things, like those core issues, and I'm not saying the state of democracy isn't important, but they overshadow everything else, right? So do you think, what you guys did in St. Paul's and in LaSalle has actually resonated beyond just those little moments?
Well, this happening right now is proof that this is starting a conversation. And I firmly believe that in order to have a country that's able to fight on the world stage, we need to have a proper democracy that actually represents what the people want. We currently have a lot of times in the history of this country in which we've had governments that don't truly represent what people voted for. And I believe to actually stand up on the world stage, to actually have a strong country in the future, we need to properly represent everybody's votes.
Why did you pick Carleton this time? What is it? Is this targeting Pierre Poilievre for a specific reason, or was it just time for a Conservative to be nailed because you did it in Liberal ridings last time?
Over the last few times of us running this, we've been accused of only running this in Liberal ridings. So this time we figured we're going to do this in Mark Carney's riding and in Pierre Poilievre's riding. But purely logistically, organizing the whole thing is really difficult. You need to gather 150 signatures per candidate in each riding, and that is very difficult to do. We were about to actually do this in Nepean and this time in Pierre Poilievre's riding. However, we just couldn't get the amount of signatures required to do this in Mark Carney's riding. So we figured might as well finish this off right now, just in one of the ridings and do it properly.
Okay, so why do you think that was, right? Because, Pierre Poilievre has represented Carleton since 2004. Like, that is not an insignificant amount of time. He's seen as having a very strong base of support out there. How did you get 150 signatures times, 85 candidates or 86 candidates that you're running? Yeah, because to bring it all the way up to 91, because the Greens are running, the NDP, the Conservatives and Liberals. I mean, how were you able to convince voters in the leader of the Conservative Party's riding to sign those signatures, sign up?
People are surprisingly sympathetic towards the cause. Even last year in Montreal when we were doing this, I was out there gathering signatures, and people are curious about this. People are really used to the status quo. A lot of, especially younger people, are tired of the same thing happening over and over again. A lot of people from my generation are used to growing up for their whole lives, seeing this unfair system of first past the post being used in all the elections, and a lot of people truly want change to happen. So it's not difficult to get somebody to just sign a paper and to hope for the best afterwards, since I believe it truly represents what people want.
So why didn't it work in Nepean in Mark Carney's riding? Do they not care about electoral reform or representation?
That is not the
or
case.
like what happened there?
No, it's actually just gathering the signatures. I mean, we had to stand there for multiple hours in each of the ridings, and I believe it was rainy on one of the days, so we just couldn't get the amount of papers out of the way properly. So it was purely logistical.
So what do you say to people who look at this and say this is a stunt and they're annoyed by it and they think it's going to slow things down, and you've got an election that, for older people like me who, it's been a long time since I was 19 years old, who see this as maybe the most important election of their lifetime, and something like this is happening. What do you say to people who are going to be annoyed by this?
People are certainly allowed to view that way, and I sympathize with them. I mean, it's pretty simple to see how this complicates the election in a few ways. However, I really stand by my words that it is very important to properly change the way that our elections are held. if we really want our country to be strong, if we want our people to have confidence in our electoral system, if we want to have governments that truly represent what our people want, we need to have a system that's more equitable, that is more fair, and that better shows what people want in our country. And this is actually getting a lot of media attention. This is happening right now. We've been having a lot of attention back in Montreal, all across the country, of people tuning in and figuring out what the hell is going on, why are there long ballots? And people are learning about electoral reform in a way that they never would otherwise. You don't just approach people on the street and go, hey, have you ever heard of first past the post? We should change it. You don't just do that to people. You actually have to gain their attention.
Okay, so on this ballot, you are...
It'd be the second column.
Yeah, I'm. There you are. You're right here. In LaSalle-Verdun, you got 20 votes, I think, 0.1% of the vote, but that still put you in the top 10 just because of the way that thing went. I mean, do you want to do this for a career? Do you think you're going to go into politics? I mean, you're a young man. You've got a lot of options ahead of you. But, do you think this is something you want to do, or is this just a cause for you at this point in your life?
It is purely a cause for me. I'm studying in civil engineering, completely unrelated to politics in any way. But it is a field that's still related to the way our government is run. You're seeing a lot of infrastructure built, and you have to follow along with how ministries work, and seeing how it's all still fundamentally related to the way people vote. I just want it to change. I just want the status quo to finally be gone, and for young people and people of all ages, as a matter of fact, to stand up for what they believe in and to have a fair democracy.
All right. Well, Mark, my dad is a civil engineer. He had a pretty good career out of it. So good luck in your studies. That's Mark Mutter, running in Carleton as part of the Longest Ballot Initiative. Thanks, sir. Good to meet you.
I do understand that all of Canadian federal politics is a big scam game. Like, I'm not truly a conservative. I just know that that's the way we have to vote if we're looking for any improvement. Will it get better if they ever get elected? Who knows? But the Liberals won't give them a chance because they keep cheating, stalling, dividing, distracting. Again, conservatives will use similar tactics, I'm sure, but not as flagrantly. It's so embarrassing. This kid is so arrogant. David Cochrane, do you think he's going to get lucky after that?